The Nuggets take on the Milwaukee Bucks and the Philadelphia 76ers in what could be finals previews. Plus, the Nuggets are probably going to get the 1 seed. They're almost definitely going to get the 1 seed. Do they want the 1 seed? All that and more on Locked On Nuggets.
You are Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast, part of the Locked On Network, your team every day. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. My name is Matt Moore. I'm the senior NBA writer for the Action Network, and I'm sounding kind of froggy, so I'll probably leap. Alongside Adam Mares from DNVR, you can check out all the pre- and post-game show at DNVR and check out all his great work on the daily Denver Nuggets podcast. Also check out the DNVR bar. If you're going out this weekend, you want to watch the Elite Eight, there's no better place to watch it than at the DNVR bar. Plus, you can catch some of these amazing, awesome games from the Nuggets that we're going to talk about, including the matchup coming on Saturday night versus the Milwaukee Bucks. We'll talk about that matchup, plus the matchup with the Sixers, what we can learn from those, how much you want to learn from those. Final segment, we'll talk about the race for the number 1 seed, where the Nuggets are at. Do they want the 1 seed? We got a lot to get to on today's show. Adam Mares, how are the birds in your neck of the woods?
Birds are good. Birds are good. This time of year, very exciting for the migration of birds. So I'll have lots of updates for you in the coming weeks.
All right, good to hear it. Let's start by breaking down the game on Saturday night. The Denver Nuggets host the Milwaukee Bucks in a potential finals preview. Now, look, gotta be mentioned that the schedule makers hate us, just absolutely hate all of us, because in a late season matchup between two teams that were projected to win more than 50 games, the Milwaukee Bucks tonight travel to Utah, and then they have the altitude back-to-back versus Denver. Given that it is March Madness and the NBA is a bunch of cowards and they just hide from any chance to compete with anything. Oh no, there's something else on. This game's on NBA TV, but you will not get dinged for resting players on NBA TV game. You will only get dinged for a game on ESPN or TNT.
It is funny that the first Nuggets-Bucks matchup was for Denver a really tough New Orleans to Milwaukee back-to-back, and that theirs is a Utah to Denver back-to-back.
Yep.
Why? How are we burying the story? They only play twice a year. Jokic and Giannis, the last two MVPs. How is this? Oh, let's see. It's March Madness weekend. What game can we throw there that we don't care about? Denver, Milwaukee. Perfect.
I mean, look, I'm the one that thinks these matchups are dumb in general. Like, I think I'm always the one that's like, no, like, go see your team. Go to the arena to see your team. Don't go to the arena to see the visiting player come in. Go to see your guys. Let's get rid of these non-con. Like, if we just get rid of these non-con games, we got lots of room in the schedule for more division games, which is shorter travel, which would make it easier for everybody, but no one listens. Yeah, so, I'll just tell you that it would not surprise me. Milwaukee sometimes gets up for these back-to-backs, but it would not surprise me if the Bucks had to rest this one. It's a tough travel spot, so I wouldn't be shocked if Giannis took the night off. He's had to miss some games with knee soreness and a hand injury. It's been ongoing all season. These guys have a lot of miles on them, and the Bucks are in really good position to secure the 1 seed, as is Denver. So, but let's imagine for the moment that we get a true finals preview matchup, potentially, at least like a thing to look at here. What is your big picture kind of thought about this matchup as it pertains to the Denver Nuggets, who historically, when Jokic has played, have done very well versus Giannis's Bucks?
They have. Part of that's probably a function of just not playing very much. I think Malone had a good quote earlier this year at a practice where he said, for Eastern Conference teams, we only see them twice a year. We don't really change much. We don't game plan that much for them. And I always thought that was interesting. I think that's probably a coach across the board. Most teams just don't spend that much time. They're on a back-to-back. They probably are not scouting Denver's rotations very closely and telling the guys to key in on the subtleties of the rotation for Denver. But I'm looking for – they have a great big in Brook Lopez, and they obviously have a second great big in Giannis Antetokounmpo. I think both of these upcoming games, in addition to having all the stakes and narrative stakes and everything, they present a challenge that I'm very curious to see if Denver is prepared for, especially given the fact that they had practice, or they're having practice later today. Can when team puts a big on Jokic and then another big as the roamer, how does Jokic and the Nuggets attack that, and are they successful? Or if not, this weekend might be a big weekend where other teams look around and go, oh, interesting. Okay, that's our strategy against Denver in the playoffs.
I think my kind of initial reaction is I think it's maybe easier with the big. I would imagine the counter to this is just put him in pick and roll, right? Like let's get Jamal Murray coming off of now. Drew Holiday is one of the best in the league at coming over the screen, and like I've railed against drop coverage before because of how much I think it leaves you vulnerable to great shot makers off the bounce. If you execute it at an amazingly elite level, it's really effective. Guess what the Bucks do? They're amazingly elite at drop coverage. Like they are so good because Drew's able to get over the screen and contest on you and really make it hard on you on your hip. And Brooks able to play both up and back at the same time. Like he's got the size and mobility to challenge you on the mid-range jumper, but also if you try for the lob to get back and disrupt that. It's really it's really tough. I kind of wonder if maybe some of this answer is to get Jokic like one of the things that they've gone to in the past when this has been kind of a tough matchup is get Joker on the move. That to me seems like the best kind of counter here is don't give them the opportunity to game plan setting that double. Don't give them the opportunity to game plan the front. Is get Joker off of cuts, off of screens, on the move to get him moving towards the basket. That to me is the best way to kind of neutralize what they're going to try and do with the two big lineup.
It could be. I mean, when you were talking about Jamal Murray and the drop coverage, the one thing is as much as you're right, that's an important component of it. I still feel like it's a major win if you force Denver into a bunch of Murray pick and roll pull up jumpers. Like if that's what you limit Denver's offense to, that's less than their usual offense. To me, it is that. I mean, Jamal Murray is a large part of what breaks the only way you can try to beat Jokic, which is keeping the ball out of his hands by overloading things. Well, do you have a player that can take advantage of that overload? And it has to be Murray. I don't think there's another guy. But the other guy that I keyed in on for this weekend specifically is Aaron Gordon, because he has a huge job. One, to hit the threes when he's open in the corners, off of that help. But two, attacking, trying to get to the basket. If a team is overloading, if Giannis is guarding him but out of position because he's just not respecting the jumper, are you able to get to the rim and put pressure on Giannis, the best in the game and the hardest guy to put pressure on? That to me is a big question mark that at some point Denver's going to have to answer that question and have him perform that role.
Aaron's down to 36% on threes. He was shooting 39%, north of 40% early in the season.
36 is right.
I agree. So that's kind of my question here is that good enough? And if not, I do think this naturally leads into a question of, are we going to see in a certain matchup, in a certain situation where they're going to have to, I don't think Malone is ever going to be in a mental space to do this, but are they going to be in a situation where you and I are calling for them to play MPJ at the 4 and put Aaron Gordon on the bench?
I mean, I don't think so, largely because that doesn't solve the problem. Like a team can change up their defensive strategy in that moment, knowing that that Denver's defense got so much worse that now you can just kind of play things more normal. So I just don't think so. It's Denver needs Aaron Gordon to be on the court for defense, and they need him to be making his shots on offense.
Okay. So it's just like a pressure point you're going to have to live with, you think?
I think it is. Every team has. I mean, Giannis needed to make free throws,
there's
just a pressure point and you're going to have to see if you can handle it in those moments. And it comes down to very small sample sizes that will determine whether you win or not.
If you want to know, as we talk about on the show all the time, and I'm always railing against like the X outs and the corner rotations and things like that, about how do you run drop coverage and still be able to defend the corners, watch how the Milwaukee Bucks defend pick and roll this weekend, provided that they put an effort into it. They are the best in the league at this, in my opinion. So last year they ran into this problem of they got Brook back and their defense at the rim was amazing, but they were overloading so much in the paint that they were just giving up a ton. And they talked about it as a coaching staff and with the players this summer. And they came out with we've got to balance better about protecting the rim and at the corners. And they basically they've talked about this, about how they came to the conclusion of we can trust our rim protection. We have enough with Brook and Giannis. So let's be a little bit more aggressive in recovering. Let's be early. Let's not be late. Let's risk a couple of more attempts on the interior with the rim protectors that we have versus the Nuggets who are like paint. Okay, now 3. And the Bucks are very much like, now the Bucks will they still give up a decent amount of threes because they'll give you the above the break ones. That's what you wind up giving up if you're going to play the style that they do, but they eliminate the corners and they eliminate the paint. And that combo is what makes them one of the best defensive teams in the NBA. So it'll be interesting to see, like, the Nuggets. I feel like that's a big part of their offense, right? Is like attacking the rim and attacking from the corners on threes. Now, a lot of that is obviously in transition as well, but I just think it's like part of the equation here. If the Bucks bring an A game effort, how to watch it.
The Bucks, by the way, just have an elite defender in Drew Holiday, an elite defender in Giannis, and then a bunch of size. I mean, that's part of it. Grayson Allen is big for a point guard's position, and you've got Chris Middleton, who has a great wingspan. You have, obviously, Giannis is enormous. So I think that's part of your ability to do both. Is a lot about how much ground can you cover. They can cover maybe the most in the NBA.
It's not going to happen. Can I just say I want to see Vlatko versus Giannis? I just would like I'm serious. I'd like to see it. Like, body type.
What do you expect there?
Charge.
Could be.
That's the thing. Like, the best way to counter Giannis, I'm telling you, from everything I've watched of him, the best way to play it is you have to constantly be back in transition, and you have to try and take charges. Because if you do, you get him in foul trouble and the whole thing falls apart. Whole thing falls apart if he gets him, especially if he gets hesitant because he's not getting those calls. That's like a significant way to disrupt them. Now, like, he has gotten so much better at avoiding it. Like, he just goes around you. It's amazing. But, like, to me, Vlatko has a better chance than anybody else off the bench at being able to make that play.
Do you know who Team Serbia put on Giannis?
Who?
In Serbia versus Greece?
Who?
Jokic. And they just had him. I mean, what Jokic is good at, remember, he's bad at pick and roll. He's bad out in space when you have to contest the three. But Jokic is very good at sort of giving 10 feet of space and funneling you to the direction he wants, and then living with whatever, like, difficult shot you can do. And it honestly worked. I mean, Giannis scored a bunch of points, but he kept him away from the rim. And in the clutch, Giannis had to make or miss jump shots, and he missed them. I wonder if Denver got into a finals. I do wonder if they would put Aaron Gordon on, on Brook Lopez or something and tell Jokic, like, hey, we'll see if they get suckered into Giannis ISOs, and we'll see if he beats you with them.
Come up next, I got a question for Adam about the importance of this matchup. Plus, we'll talk about the Sixers matchup coming up on Monday as well. We'll do that when we return on Locked On Nuggets. First, I need to tell you about Nissan's Most Electric Player of the Week, brought to you by the all-new, all-electric 2023 Nissan Ariya. The Most Electric Player of the Week, I'm going to give it to Zeke Naji for bringing energy off the bench to be able to help the bench look a lot better, for providing the switchability, for getting rebounds. That's a huge thing. That's exactly what the Nuggets needed, and Zeke's been awesome in that. So he's going to get the Nissan Most Electric Player of the Week. Nissan Electric Player of the Week is brought to you by the Nissan Ariya, which is electric, brilliantly fierce, fiercely elegant, stunningly powerful, elegantly powerful, and delivers on duality, the combination of fierceness and elegance. And you know what? Zeke needs a little bit more fierceness, but he's got the elegance, I think, in his game. And he's shown a lot of emotion lately. And I think that's been a really good thing for them. Beautiful, but strong. That's definitely Zeke Naji. It's the perfect SUV crossover. The 2023 Nissan Ariya packs pin you to your seat power and premium intelligence all in one EV. The all-new, all-electric 2023 Nissan Ariya, the EV for people who love to drive. Shop now at nissanusa.com. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets, thanks for joining us and making us part of your day and your first listen. Appreciate you guys being part of the show. I apologize that my throat is still a little froggy. I'm dealing with a little bronchitis, but we're powering through here on a Friday. Speaking of powering through, Adam, I want to ask you, in this matchup between the Nuggets and the Bucks, let's assume that the Bucks do go ahead and give it the old college try. By the way, I wanted to also get your thoughts. You know, it's going to be something to watch with the bench unit. Guess who has developed some great pick and roll chemistry with Brook Lopez in the second unit?
Who?
Joe Ingles.
Oh man, he's great. Are you kidding me? Joe Ingles is a great player. His numbers actually, their best lineup features him.
I just want to give you an opportunity. Like, every time that Joe Ingles comes up in a podcast, I've always enjoyed your enthusiasm for Joe. And you're right. He's really good.
Old. He's aged. He's aged, but he came back from ACL surgery in 10 months? And then immediately started making a positive impact.
Yeah, it's been really impressive. He's brought what they needed a lot more. And like, I was concerned because he looked rough that last season in Utah, and he looks really reinvigorated with how the Bucks use him. I want to ask you. Typically speaking, you don't worry about the finals matchup because you're like, look, let's just get to the finals and we'll figure it out once we get there. and the Nuggets have so many question marks, I think, from everyone about like, can they get through this Western Conference given the kind of teams that they're probably going to face? Like they're looking at right now, like Clippers Suns is currently the 4-5. That's favorable for Denver if Clippers can knock off the Suns. But if they don't, you're looking at a first round of like potentially Lakers or Warriors, and then potentially a second round of Suns, and then you got to deal with whoever comes out of the other side of the bracket.
Lakers Suns to me are the toughest two matchups the Nuggets can face, and it's they might play them first and second.
Yeah. But my question here is like, should you try and learn something for the finals? Should that be any part of your focus here in these games?
I don't think so, because I think the team that you'll be at that point in the finals is likely very, very different. Yeah. I think if you're going to make it to the finals, you probably have answered all the like strategic questions and matchup questions, and now it's just about executing at that high level with whatever gets thrown at you. So I would say not really.
Let's talk about the Sixers matchup. So the Sixers coming in on Monday. Joel Embiid is questionable tonight versus the Warriors. So is Harden. Both those guys got pretty banged up in their 2-game set versus the Bulls. So I've kind of called this for a while. I don't necessarily see the point in Embiid playing in the second matchup. Like,
be very smart of him not to play.
He has nothing to gain and everything to lose in the second matchup with the Nuggets.
I mean, they have positioning to gain. They are, I think, tied at the moment for the 2 seed. So
yeah,
there's a basketball part of this.
So here's kind of the thing: the Cavs are 5 games back, so they're not going to fall to the 4.
Yeah, but that second round home court between Boston and Philly, you don't think that's like hyper important?
I don't think the teams view it as. I think it could be.
Really?
I don't. They never seem to act like home court's that big of a deal. I don't know why. I'm always surprised at it. I'm like, guys, home teams in Game 7 win like 80% of the time. Like you need the insurance. It's just insurance. But we'll see. Maybe they go for it. I would love to see it. Would love to see another matchup between the two MVP behemoths. That Sixers game is a little bit different, right? Because instead of like a 2 big lineup, you have that PJ Tucker disruption. Do you think the Nuggets are better at facing that, given how much they've seen it since then, to maybe play a little bit better against it this time?
I mean, you would hope so, right?
Yeah.
You should be prepared for it. It definitely seemed like it caught Denver off guard. I mean, part of this is Aaron Gordon has not been playing very well. I mean, at that point, I think he still was fine. That was the last time they played was before he missed games, right?
I think so, yeah.
But like my confidence level that now he's going to barrel towards the basket and be able to, punish Joel Embiid and take advantage of that by dunking on guys. I don't know. He hasn't shown that lately.
Right. Which is the worst matchup, the Sixers or the Bucks?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think probably the Sixers. I think it's the Sixers, just because the pick and roll is hard. I mean, I've said this before. Nicola's strategy against Joel Embiid, I think, is a smart one, but it's a really annoying one. It's let Joel Embiid score as much as he wants outside the paint. And he's, I think over the last 3 times, has scored a lot outside of the paint. And I think Denver wins most of the time and should have won this last game if it weren't for their breakdown offensively in the second half, especially in the fourth quarter. So I expect that to be a similar strategy in this game, that you're going to see Jokic give a lot of space and Embiid take a lot of jumpers. And if he makes as many as he did in the last game, 76ers will be in it. If he doesn't, I think Denver will probably win.
Embiid's shooting is, quite frankly, insane. It's really impressive. So
here's the thing about that game. It was impressive in quarters 1, 2, and 3. Denver was up 15 points.
Oh yeah, for sure. No, like winning the math game, I think is like really pivotal there. Embiid shoots 74% in the restricted area, 47.4% non-restricted area in the paint. That's not great. But this is the big one. He's shooting 49% now from mid-range. Last year he shot 2 years ago he shot I think 47%, and I was like, this is the best he's ever going to shoot. And then last year it went down. And then this year it's back up to 49%. Like, that's ridiculous. Like, he's shooting 49% from the mid-range. That's absurd. On top of his 3-point percentage, which like he's 36% above the break. So his shooting efficiency really is like elite. Foul trouble, I think, is obviously a big thing in this one, right? Too, because Joel is one of the best foul drawers in the league. He's the best foul drawer in the league. He's surpassed Giannis as the guy that draws the most. The question here, I was looking at these splits yesterday. Interestingly, Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic have a better on-court defensive rating than Embiid and Harden. I was surprised by that. And it really kind of tells you just like how bad the Sixers defense is when Harden plays. And so now Harden may miss both of these games. He was real, like he's more banged up, I think, than Embiid is. So he may miss both the game Friday night and the game on Monday. But I think it's something to kind of pay attention to. And I actually think like for the Sixers, it's better for them to go with a defense first approach. Like I also think that like you don't want Harden because Harden's bad in transition. The Nuggets are so good in transition, but it's something to kind of keep an eye on in terms of how this thing plays out. Also, like this is the bigger thing is you have the Nuggets really want to win this game. They need to figure out some sort of solve, and I don't think there is one, but they need to figure out something they can do as far as a stagger. Embiid destroys in these. If you look at like the Sixers overall defensive rating, and then you look at what the Sixers defensive rating is when Embiid and Harden play, and you go like, well, how is that possible? And it's like because Embiid destroys teams defensively when he's playing against bench units. So like this already challenged offensive unit for the Denver bench is going to be even worse trouble in those second and fourth quarter stints where Embiid staggers with the bench.
Who do you even put out in that game? Does Thomas Bryant play? You're not guarding him with Jeff Green and Zeke Naji, are you?
I don't think so. Like, I feel like I don't know. Like, it feels like everyone trusts Zeke and wants Zeke to play in any situation. So I don't want to like be that hard against it. It's just I feel like Zeke's got no chance there. I feel like Embiid's just going to body him. And Thomas Bryant will get cooked, but at least Thomas Bryant can like put an elbow into him, can like at least take a bump. I don't know. It's kind of an interesting question to think about. I don't think there's honestly, there is really no good solution. Like this one may be a specific matchup where you need to go more offensive centric just to try and keep pace. But that means that you got to stagger MPJ, which they've shown a reluctance to do so.
I don't know. It's a tough question. I want to see in both of these games Jamal Murray play well, not just play like too aggressively, but appropriately aggressively and have some shake. And in particular, going up against Drew Holiday, one of the best perimeter defenders. I would never expect Jamal Murray to cook Drew Holiday, but I do want to see if he can go toe-to-toe with him. I don't think that's too much to ask, by the way, if you're wanting to win a championship. Like your second best player has to be able to outplay the best defenders sometimes.
Danny says Thomas Bryant will put us in the bonus in 60 seconds. Can Zeke avoid that? Is it better? I mean, maybe that's better, not putting him in the bonus, right? Just like getting bodied and not fouling. Maybe that's better. I don't know. I think it's an interesting question. Like, if you could, I will say this: it might be just better to just go small ball 5 out versus the Sixers in that second unit, and really like put a lot of pressure on Embiid to cover space. The biggest thing I think in that second unit is a run. You need to get out and you need to run, because that's where the Sixers are weakest. Is they are one of the worst transition defensive teams in the league alongside Denver. So like you need to challenge, like you don't want to go into their half court offense, especially with that bench unit. You will lose that battle. So like you need to force turnovers, get out and run. It's going to take a lot of like smart doubles. Also, if they were to meet in the finals matchup, that would be like a pivotal thing that I would look at is like, can the Nuggets figure out how to effectively double Jokic or double Embiid in those sequences in those stagger splits. So.
Look at this question here. Do you think MVP takes the lead with both wins? If everybody plays, so let's say Giannis and Embiid both play, Jokic outplays them both times, Denver gets the wins. Does it change the narrative?
It makes it closer, but not enough.
Perfect.
That's
then we might actually get Jokic trying.
That's my opinion is I think that I just think that there is we got to give it to Embiid. That's where I think it is. It's like we can't not give this guy the MVP.
He's good. I honestly think he might deserve it. So it's fine by me.
Okay. I can't get there. I've tried really hard. I just can't get there. It's Giannis or Jokic for me. You can take two paths to it, whichever way you want, and I can't get to the one where Embiid's the most valuable player in the league. I can't get there. I think he's deserving of it. I think that like he's a worthy candidate. I think if you want to say Giannis doesn't play enough games and honestly, I will say this. The biggest argument I can kind of put against Jokic in favor of Embiid is Embiid, I think, actually has been more consistent. They were rough that first like really early stretch, but the Nuggets start to the season and this end to the season is enough for me to be like, okay, I got like, I don't know, 20 games ish of like the Nuggets, like Jokic and the Nuggets not trying. Okay. Well, if you do that, that's a choice, right? So, and there's consequences of that. Anyway, but yeah, the answer I think is that he still is that Jokic can win both of them and decisively, and it still doesn't matter. Especially like voters, especially that Bucks game, will be like, well, it's a back-to-back, it's in Denver, as if the ones on the road don't matter,
Right.
or do matter. So yeah, let's up next. We're gonna talk about the race for the number 1 seed, where it's at, where we think it finishes, and a more important question: do the Nuggets want the 1 seed? Bless you.
Thank you.
We'll talk about that in just 1 second. But first, I got to tell you about Ibotta. I love the name of this company, Ibotta. We're always throwing money at something: kids' school supplies, new house project, the list goes on. It's time to stop spending your hard-earned money without getting anything in return. Enter Ibotta. You can earn cash back on every shopping trip. Ibotta gives you cash back on hundreds of grocery items, from produce to personal care to pantry goods. Either link your loyalty account or upload your receipt after you shop, and you get your cash back. It's just that easy. The average Ibotta user earns $120 a year in real cash back. That can cover the cost of an entire shopping trip, or you can get your cash back to buy that flight you've been eyeing, that game you've been dying to go to, or that fancy dinner you've been craving. I really want to go to Uchi in Denver, so that's why I'll use my Ibotta money on. A typical basket of groceries was over $50 more expensive at the end of 22 than at the beginning of the year due to inflation. You could earn 2.5 times that in cash back from Ibotta, or even more depending on how much you use it. Ibotta gives you real cash back, not points. Other apps give you points that don't amount to much. With Ibotta, you get real cash back that you can cash out your bank account, PayPal, or gift cards. You can earn cash back on hundreds of online brands and retailers too when you start with Ibotta, including Lowe's, love a good Lowe's trip, Macy's, Sephora, Best Buy, love a good Best Buy trip, and more. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 for trying Ibotta by using the code LOCKED, LOCKED, when you register. Just go to the app or Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app and use code LOCKED. That's Ibotta in the Google Play or App Store, and use code LOCKED, LOCKED. That's Ibotta, IBOTTA. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for joining us and making us part of your day. Appreciate you guys being part of the show and the community. Appreciate you guys being with us and making us your first listen. Adam Mares, who's yawning sleepily on a Friday. It's almost the weekend, Adam. You almost get to rest. Do you? Or are you going to the bar for the...
I'll be, yeah, I don't know that I'll rest.
Yeah, probably not. You got the Elite Eight, and then you got the Nuggets game on Saturday night, and then, yeah. All right, let's talk about the race for the 1 seed. So, Nuggets magic number is down to 6 for home court throughout the Western Conference playoffs. To put that in perspective, they have 9 games left. The Grizzlies have 10 games left. If the Grizzlies go at a 70% clip and they finish 7-3, and Denver goes 3-6 in their final 10, the Nuggets still secure the 1 seed. I told this to Adam, and he was like, "Yeah, but the schedule." And so you're still not convinced that like this is gonna. You're still like this could be a thing that's in play.
To be honest, I'm not sweating it. I want Denver to play well. I know we're going to get to this here in a second, but the 2 seed might be the better seed.
Well, let's talk about it. Let's just go ahead and go right there. Let's give me your spiel, and then I'll give you my breakdown on the 2 versus the 1.
So everything's in flux, right, in the West. The one team that I think is the least in flux might be the Suns. They at 34 losses, the Clippers behind them at 35, the Warriors behind them at 36. So they have a 2-game cushion on the 6. It just looks like the Suns are going to be the 4 or the 5. Very, very likely to be the 4 or the 5. And in that case, that's your second round matchup. Unless one of the Clippers and Warriors beat them, which, by the way, are 2 of the better teams I would pick to beat them. So they might have a really tough for them first round matchup.
Yeah, I agree with that. No continuity. Like KD's gonna be back probably by the end of this week, or like next week, but that's still not a lot of time for them to build up continuity. You've kind of seen the depth issues that they've had. Like they have guys. It's really kind of funny. They don't remind there are a lot of ways in which they remind me of kind of the early Nuggets teams. In which what I mean by that is, you remember how it used to be like one of these guys is going to have a good night, where it's like either Torrey Craig or Gary Harris or Will Barton, like somebody's going to have a good game and you didn't know who. That's a little bit where the Suns are, where it's like Chris is just honestly not at a point. Like Chris is going to have a game where he puts up 25-30. I think that's possible for Chris.
That's the thing, man. I just in the playoffs, I don't count on the Chris Paul's washed in the playoffs.
Yeah.
It might happen. It might, but
he'll have like
I'll bet against.
But I think here's the thing, though, is like he might have like a 25 or 30 point game, but he also might have a bunch of games where it's like, yeah, he had 8 points and 12 assists, but like 8 points and didn't shoot well from the field. Like this is a big thing for me, is that age robs you of consistency. That's what it does. It doesn't rob you of your ceiling. It robs you of your ability to do it every single night. And so like you got Josh Okogie, you've got Landry Shamet, you got Damian Lee, you got Torrey Craig, you got these guys, and like that's who every other night, like they're hoping one of those guys is able to get loose. Now again, like they're undefeated with KD, right? Like they were undefeated with KD, he got hurt and they started losing again. So just the question to kind of here is like, how do you balance all that out? As far as the 2 versus the 1 seed goes, I do think like you're not going to have, you won't wind up with worse. Like the game 7 versus Phoenix will be at home if it gets there, right? Like no matter what happens, Phoenix can't pass Denver. So it really comes down to like, do you need home court to beat Memphis or Sacramento? And I don't think you do. So like, yeah, I would probably agree that there's something to be said for the value of the 2 versus the 1. I do think though that there is something about like the feeling of you held the 1 seed all year and then you lost it at the end. Like what is that momentum? Like how does that feel for you? Like we were the 1, we were the dominant team, and then like we got passed by the Grizzlies.
And Denver already lost 5 of 6, a week ago. If you continue another trend like that, you're looking at your last 20 games going, we were great all year, but we were 7-13 down the stretch. Like that it feels bad no matter what people say.
Yeah. Like I said, like I've done the research, and I want to be clear on this. The research doesn't say that if you're bad in the final month of the season, you're good in the playoffs. That is not what it says. It says that there's no correlation. Like the data just says that like you can be good, you can be bad, and it's a mix of results, which means that it's entirely possible that you can be bad in the last month of the regular season and then flame out in the playoffs. That's like this team is not like safe because of the history of it not mattering or it not being determinative, right?
There also is just the time. It's the time. Like this is stuff we used to talk about back in the day. Should Denver do this or that? Like at a certain point, you go, it's our time. We just got to beat the best teams.
And I love this point, and I think it's very important. You just got to be like, we're better.
Yeah.
Or
we're better or we're not. Like
or we're not.
Right now. Like we don't need to. If we have to think this hard about the easy path, then we're probably gonna get got at some point.
If you get beat by this Lakers team, you were never good enough.
Right.
It was like you really were. You were frauds. If you get beat by this Lakers team in a 1-8,
yeah, I don't think the Lakers are winning the title. I mean, so if you can't beat them,
if you get, I don't know. The Warriors are the one I can't figure out. I've gone round and round in my head about it because there's just so many like every part of my being wants to not count them out, but they have just been screaming at us to count them out. Like I really can't stress this. If there was like any sign, if there was like any glimpse, I could get there.
The Warriors are good if they have Andrew Wiggins. They're good if they have him. To me, and I don't know if there's enough time now to bring him back and to get that momentum going to be a contender. But to me, Wiggins completes their starting 5. They're still a very shallow team, but to me, they become like the Suns, where their best punch is as good as anyone's, and they don't really have the depth that makes them unassailable. But if you catch them on the wrong night, Klay Thompson has 10 threes.
Let me counter that. They're 38-36, so they are just 2 games up of being a 500 team. They've been a 500 team for most of the season, above or below. Okay. Does Andrew Wiggins take them from a 500 team to like a 3 seed level team?
I mean, they're a 500 team because they've also missed Steph Curry and they've missed Draymond and they've missed.
But everybody's missed guys. This is how the NBA goes.
Their starting 5 is the best offense and the best defensive starting of 5-man unit in the NBA. That's a meaningful thing to me, and it's on good sample size. And they have the pedigree. Do they have the depth to win a title? I don't know. But if you told me they get Andrew Wiggins back and, they might have to go through a plan or whatever, but they get that and then enter the playoffs, I would look at that and go, that's not a 500 team. That's a much better team.
Danny points this out. Their record with and without Wiggins is nearly identical. Both at home.
But it's not about Wiggins. Isn't the guy that makes them better. He's not Jokic, but he is a guy that brings them together. He's like Aaron Gordon. If Nuggets missed Murray for a portion of the series, then they missed Jokic for a portion of the season, then they missed Wiggins for a portion of the season, you wouldn't look at just the games with, one of those guys. The Wiggins to me is the guy that completes the Draymond, Clay, Steph trio. Like he last year, especially in the playoffs, he had an Andre Iguodala-esque performance in key moments.
I hear you. Like I don't think you're wrong at all. I have a hard time parsing through this stuff. They're a very confusing team because it depends on whether you think that history matters or not. And you can say like, I don't think history matters at all. It's only about the season. And that's totally fine. And I can't blame you for that. I do tend to think that there are things that have held true throughout NBA history. And one of them is if you're not a top 3 seed, you don't win the finals. You definitely don't win. You don't.
I mean, if that's the case, though, then Denver also has plenty of these indicators as well.
For sure.
You don't have a winning road record. I mean, I know they do by the skin of their teeth at the moment.
Matt Peterson, who I believe writes for Suns.com, is shared with me several times that the Nuggets are going to have one of the worst records for a 1 seed in the Western Conference since like 87.
That's another part of this is I think that the 1 versus 12 thing feels different because of what the numbers are. If you only get 53, 54 wins, yeah, that's like Denver's had 54 wins before when they were a lower seed. Again, I think Denver has to just beat these teams, and I think they're capable of it. Like Bucks, 76ers, Celtics, any Suns. I think Denver is capable of beating the fully healthy version of all of these teams at their very best. So part of me thinks this is all just kind of talking through the like favorable versus unfavorable matchups. But Denver, to me, just needs to get to the level that they're capable of playing and take everybody's best shot.
Yeah. It's supposed to be hard, right? Like
I mean, that's what everybody says. It's the hardest thing you've ever done.
Yeah. It's supposed to be hard. What's your prediction for the next 2 games?
I kind of don't think Embiid plays in the 76ers game. I think Denver gets a win. I'm kind of high on Denver. I think they've rebounded. I think it's underrated that they are going to have 5 days with just 1 game, and it was against the Wizards. I think that the team is probably as rested as they've been in a month since the All-Star break. So I expect them to play good basketball. After coming out of the All-Star break, they beat the Cavs, they beat the Clippers, they beat the Grizzlies. I think Denver probably looks pretty good over this next upcoming stretch of games.
I think Giannis and Drew sit on Saturday and the Nuggets win. And I think...
Why would they do that, though?
The Bucks?
I mean, they might not beat Utah, but let's say they beat Utah, they're still only 2.5 games up on the Celtics. Like, it's not over.
I don't think that I think that team less than anybody cares about the 1.
Really?
Yeah, I do.
Huh.
Because like they've rested guys like Giannis has rested a lot of games. And I think that I think after you win a title, you just feel like you can do it. You can feel like you can go on the road and win. I mean, it's probably not better for them just because it's like the team most likely to pass you is Boston. Sixers schedule is brutal the rest of the way. Just statistically, the Sixers are less likely to capture the 1. That'd be an ideal outcome, obviously, for the Sixers. But if you're the Bucks, you're just like, look, we're gonna have to go through Boston at some point. Like, does it really matter if it's first or second round? And then, like, are you really worried about going into Philly for a Game 7? No. You're not worried about going into Philly for a Game 7 if you're the Bucks. You won the title. So, to me, I don't think that they feel a pressure to get the 1. I think that all the teams in the East, 1, 2, 3, don't feel a lot of pressure to get the 1 seed. I feel like the Nuggets are under the most pressure to get the 1 just because they've held it.
Yeah. If the Nuggets do win these next 2 games, to me, it sets them up so nicely. If they go 2-0 here and maintain that 3.5 game stretch lead, I just feel like all these other games you get to rest if you need to rest. You get to do the things that you need to do. And I want to see them experiment against Phoenix. Like, you play Phoenix twice in the final 2 weeks of the season. That might be your second round matchup. I'd love for them to try things out without the pressure of, do we need to win this or not? I just think that would be very good for them.
I will say this. I kind of think Embiid plays on Monday. I think it's more likely he misses tonight than Monday. I think he wants to win this bad enough that he wants to go into Denver and like really show everybody.
I also don't think he's afraid of Jokic. Like, I think he likes that matchup. So
yeah. So we'll see how it goes. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Make sure you have yourselves a great weekend. We'll be back on Monday with a recap of the Bucks game. We'll get you set for the game versus the Philadelphia 76ers. Make sure to check out all the great content over at DNVR pre- and post-game shows. Check out the DNVR bar if you're going out this weekend. Be safe. Have yourselves a great weekend. We'll see you guys again next time on Locked On Nuggets.